Hey guys, back again with another figure kit. This time we'll be looking at our first Kotobukiya frame arms girl kit with their, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, Hresvelgr Bikini Armor version. Let's open her on up and take a look. So, first up, we've got the hand parts, which they do give you a large variety, consisting of 5 different sets. Now, what's interesting about these, and hopefully some of the details are going to show up on camera, is that it's not the traditional plastic you normally expect with these kits. It's more of a rubbery type plastic, almost something I want to say similar to the polycap parts found on Gundam kits. So that makes this a little bit interesting. Is I'm not sure how well the paint's going to take to these if you decide to paint her. So that is something to be aware of. Other than that, there is a little bit of seam lines that are going to need to be cleaned up. Other than that, they're quite nice, and the fact that you do get a large variety of them will make it a lot easier for you to pick out one you want to use. Continuing on, we move on to some of the armor parts as well as the weapon parts. Again, hopefully some details showing up. There's a lot of subtle detailing, especially like here on the grips, some of the other parts. So it does provide a very nice canvas to work with. And once you detail them up, it will be quite nice looking. Continuing on, we now get to this kit's armor parts, broken down obviously the top and bottom, as well as feet and some of the leg details. Very nice casting job. No real mold lines that jump out at me, at least. And it's a nice logical breakdown for the parts. Again, some nice subtle detailing and panel lining on them that once you detail it up will really jump out quite nicely. Well, some interesting cut through points to allow some subsurface detail to show. Next up, we've got the main torso skin parts, consisting of a top and bottom sections. One major complaint I have is this: if you choose to do it without a armor part that we'll get to in a little bit, you're going to be left with this fairly sizable hole that will need to be filled, and that's going to be a bit of a pain, especially given just the subtle detailing on the back muscles. So cleaning that up will be a bear. So that is something to be aware of. Other than that, as I said, a lot of the detailing in the muscular structure really shines through. They did a fantastic job in sculpting that, as well as on the upper sections, the front and back. So Kotobukiya did a really good job here. Next up, we've got some smaller detail parts for the bikini, some of the, I guess, call it almost frills. Hopefully that'll show up. Really need to say there. Next up, we got some of the parts for building up the joints and points of mobility. Now, since this is more action figure-y type of build, you are going to have to fully assemble all those joints. So that is going to be a bit of a pain. That's another thing to be aware of. So, continuing on, now we get into the hair parts. Now, this is an area they did another spot they did a good job, is they provide you 3 different front piece options, either parted to left, right, or center. So having that as options is always a great thing. Overall, build-up is a little complicated, but it's a logical type of complicated that once you get going, should all together pretty quickly. So, good job there. Continuing on, now we got some more of the flesh parts, including the face. Now, unfortunately, it only comes with one blank face, and that I feel, as you'll see in a minute, they do include some pre-made faces. I wish they had included different versions, as just having the one is a bit sad. Beyond that, though, we also have our 2 thigh parts, as well as our shoulder parts, and of course, obviously, the front middle part for the chest. Overall, the breakdown's pretty simple. No real gotchas here, but I digress. Now, this sprue, this includes parts for the single piece suit. We're not going to touch on this particular one now in a later video, as I do have some of the other kits. We will discuss it then, but for now, just know that it does include this as an added sprue. Continuing on, we got a double sprue tree for more of the joint parts. Again, it's pretty complicated build on that front, as we'll see once we get into the instruction sheet. So that is something to be aware of. Some more joint parts, including a sprue of polycaps, all in flesh color. Now, another point where they do give you a little bit of customization is in the connector points between the armor parts and the flesh parts. For both the legs and the arms, they give you 2 different styles of connector, one with this male end and a female end for the legs, and then 2 slightly different styles on the arm connectors. So that is a nice inclusion, give you some more options. More armor parts, this time building up last bits of the legs and the arms, as well as a little bit of the torso. Now, last but not least, as far as sprues go, are clear parts. Now, here they've done a fantastic job of casting these. There is no bubbling, no real seam lines that I can catch. So they did a fantastic job of these. And the only thing I would suggest is maybe on the inner edge, maybe adding a little bit of silver paint just to help some of the light really pop on stuff like the blades. Or do that to the mating surfaces that they're going to go on, because I think that'll really help catch the light and make them pop a little more. Now, as I mentioned before, the kit does include a trio of pre-made faces, and hopefully this will show up without too much issue. You get a total of 3 different faces, and fortunately, 2 of them you can replicate using decals included, which we'll look at in a minute. However, this third one with the mouth open, you can't do, as they do not give you that face part, which is unfortunate. That's my one major complaint there. You also get 2 side parts that build up in the upper bikini area. Pre-done. Wish they had not done that, as obviously you're going to have to repaint them if you do decide to go with different skin tone, or decide to paint it yourself in order to ensure that all the parts do blend together. Give me a minute to get all the sprues back in the box, and then we'll move on to the decals. Oops. Now, as far as decals go, they give you a set of 3 different eye parts, or eye styles, and then a couple smaller detail chevrons for the arms. Overall, nothing really, special. Just your general decals. They do make aftermarket decals that have additional eye colors and eye styles, so that is something to look into. Now, On to the instructions. Overall, build sequencing is a little complicated, but it's complicated in a way that is logical, at least. You know, if you follow the instructions, you're not going to run into any issues. Most of the issues that could arise is because of doing things out of sequence. Again, since you're building up a lot of the inner framing structure for the various parts, that does, make it a little more complicated and will require you to, unfortunately, follow the instructions almost verbatim. And you're not really going to be able to jump around, as you may have issues later on. Once you do build it up, and again, as I mentioned before, they do provide a little bit of armor part that will cover up that back hole. Once you do build it up, it will build up quite nicely. Thankfully, they do give you paint keys if you wish to go with the base colors. So overall, now the Frame Arm Girls kits are definitely a much more complicated kit. Doubly so if you wish to, do your own paint schemes and whatnot. However, they do have a bit of a logic to them, so if you're prepared for that, it's definitely something to consider. This particular one is on the what I would consider the low end in terms of difficulty, simply due to the fact you're not dealing with a lot of armor parts on top of the figure parts. And I figured this was a good starting kit to review, as we will eventually get to the rest. But yeah, that was a look at Kotobukiya's Hresvelgr Bikini Armor version. A good entry kit to give you a taste of what building a Frames Arm Girl kit will be, and decently challenging kit. So, until next time.